in real estate, for example, somebody who's been an agent for a few years, maybe they have their first six-figure year, first multi-six-figure year, and then suddenly they have this huge score. Maybe they 3 or 5x their annual income year over year. And what happens is, A, it sets them into a completely new bracket compared to their peers. And now they're standing out. They have more eyeballs, more attention, more pressure, more expectation. And because it's so foreign, and our subconscious craves familiarity because familiarity is predictable and that's how it keeps us safe, it's so foreign, it feels like a threat. And I know I'm saying that and you're like, I would love to 5x my income. That wouldn't feel threatening. But underneath the surface, it would. You stand out. Yeah. There's a potential to lose those relationships with peers. And that imposter syndrome begins to manifest as, ooh, is this a fluke? Did I get lucky? Can I do this again? It gets heavy. It gets doubtful. It gets uncertain. And it's because initially there isn't that feeling of, I believe I deserve to be here. I'm worthy and I can absolutely do it again. Simply because of the novelty of it still.
Welcome back to Time-Tested Mastery, Life Lessons Sell, the show where we talk about trust-based selling, leadership, discipline, and real-world lessons that hold up under pressure. Today's guest is Paul Salter, mindset and performance coach, hypnotherapist, keynote speaker, and host of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset podcast. With 17 years of coaching experience, Paul has coached nearly 4,000 people, taught advanced human performance at Northern Arizona University, and written 3 books. Paul is known as the golf hypnotherapist, and his work is about the work beneath the work. Dismantling self-sabotage, rewiring beliefs, regulating emotions, and building confidence that holds when the stakes are high. Here is the great question that I wanted to start with. For the person listening who keeps hitting the same invisible ceiling, despite being smart, capable, and motivated, what's the real program running underneath? And how can they spot it in their own life this week?
It's not safe to stand out. So there's a belief and there's a fear component here that we need to address. The belief underneath everything is a variation of, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, or I'm not capable of, achieving this next level success. The fear then is rooted in, it's unsafe to stand out. And we can go a number of different directions with that if you wish. But what I'm really getting at here is it's often lost on us, thousands and thousands of years ago, if we were rejected, abandoned, or kicked out by our tribe, we literally died. We starved to death. That classic saber-toothed tiger ate us. And although we don't face the same challenges and immediate threats, that visceral fear and need to belong is still as real as ever. And if you and your, circle of peers, your 5 people you spend the most time with, for example, are at income threshold A, and you're putting in the work to get to that next level, there is a real potential for a threat or a strain on that relationship. Your peers might feel resentment, envy, jealousy, anger. Maybe they start making passive aggressive remarks. You don't get nearly as many invites to social events. And on an unconscious, visceral level, it feels like you're being outcast from the group. That's not safe. And in turn, you start to sabotage and play small to bring you back to that place of comfort and predictability.
I have seen that same thing happen over and over and over in real estate people for years that say, I would really love to be up there. They just don't feel like they can get there. Boy, that's a tough thing to have to try and push through.
And that's why I always tell people, like, you're aware of it, but it feels so heavy at times or constricting. And you find yourself stuck in this pattern of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And you start having these mind-boggling moments like, what the heck am I doing? I say I want this goal, but I keep finding myself in these destructive patterns. And fortunately, they're learned and they can be unlearned.
Okay, well, we will probably come back to that a little bit later in the show. But what I'd like for you to do is share with the listeners that have not met you a little bit about your background, what brought you to what you're doing today professionally.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Paul Salter. I'm a high performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach, and I help my clients unlearn these destructive patterns of feeling, thinking, believing, and behaving that hold them back from their potential. Now, my story begins as a 5'1", 110-pound soaking wet, 16-year-old multi-sport athlete. Everybody is bigger, stronger, faster than me. All of the girls are taller than me. I am the runt of the group, to say the least, but I'm competitive, I'm scrappy, and I'm desperate for every edge I can get. Now, when I was growing up, this was when Michael Jordan was in his prime. And shortly after Tiger Woods came into his peak, you've got Kobe Bryant, Roger Federer, and these were kind of my athletic idols. And what always struck me as curious is, why do these individuals who spend more or less the same number of hours practicing and training, why are they so much better than everybody else? So I had this curiosity about me that led me down a rabbit hole of books and blogs and resources and whatnot. And eventually I would later learn that I was basically reading a lot of books in the performance psychology genre. So this fascination grew, and fortunately, so did I. I'm 6 foot today. It just took me a little while to get there. And I fell in love with natural bodybuilding. And the reason that's important is because to share is, for the first time in my life, I experienced this direct input, the food I put into my body, the exercise I did or did not do, and how it transformed my physique. And I was just obsessed with this. So eventually, as I continued to learn more about the mind of the human body, I set my sights on becoming the first sports dietitian for the Washington Redskins. So that's my favorite football team. And we have to remember, back then, there were only 7 sports dietitians across the NFL and college sports. It wasn't like it is today, where there's multiple per team in every major sporting organization. So I was really excited about this goal. And eventually I worked as a sports dietitian. I worked very closely with elite high school, collegiate, professional, and Olympic athletes, helping them to maximize their performance. Yet selfishly, when I was working with these elite individuals, I was just observing. I was a sponge. How are they carrying themselves? What makes them tick? What makes them so different? And I began to understand they're not too different than you and I. And they know what to do. And in my realm, they understood what a nutritious choice was and what an unhealthy choice was. Their challenge laid between their ears and in their heart. So a lot of my coaching shifted more into, why do you not do what you know you need to do? And this created a foundation of the mental work I do today. But here, Mark, this is where things get interesting. About 10 years later, I've shifted away from the athlete focus. I've shifted more into helping women stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle get out of that cycle, achieve sustainable weight loss from the inside out. But I always had this passion for the game of poker. And I always told myself one day I would do it. One day I'd play in the World Series of Poker main event. I'd play professionally. But it dawned on me I'd probably never actually do it unless I did it now. I wasn't married yet. I didn't have kids, so it was now or never. So I pursued professional poker. And about 6 months into that journey, I thought I was out working, out studying everybody. I had the poker coach, and it still felt like I was lighting money on fire. Not quite ready to give up, I asked for help. And I hired my own mindset and performance coach. She happened to be a hypnotherapist. And in a very short amount of time, I suddenly found myself playing for significantly more money than I imagined, earning significantly more money than I imagined. Yet far more valuable to me was the impact she had on me as an individual. So much so, I walked away from poker, completely phased out the nutrition coaching of my business, doubled down on my mindset coaching, got my credentials as a hypnotherapist, surrounded myself with people who were far more experienced and wiser than me, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. I mean, that's an amazing story. So, well, I think it's fascinating. Number one, when you said that you were 5'1" and an athlete that was 5'1", I'm saying there's no way, the way you are on that screen, that you're 5'1". But so I think that's awesome. But what you're sharing about what you're doing today is the end result of the experience that you went through with your own experience and your mindset with your poker.
Bingo. Yeah, there were so many beliefs around money that I hadn't addressed, I wasn't even aware of, that were holding me back from that ascension to the next level. This fear of loss, this scarcity mindset. Am I capable of getting to the next level? Uncertainty, doubt, imposter syndrome. And all of these prove to be great opportunities for growth.
Yeah. And I love that phrase, imposter syndrome. I had not heard it until about a year, a little over a year ago, because I had sold real estate for 40 years and worked with salespeople. And that imposter syndrome was never something that I experienced because I had been doing well in it over a long period of time. But the minute that I semi retired and moved into a coaching, training, the podcast space and everything, all of a sudden, I felt very much like an imposter. So, share what's going on in somebody's mind when they have something that they want to do, but they don't feel like they can do.
Yeah, again, it comes back to those core beliefs. So we have three core beliefs about ourselves as individuals. Am I worthy? Am I deserving? Am I capable? So I'm going to use you as an example. Of course, I don't want to
Okay.
speak for you, so please correct me or update me. But if you took this incredible track record of success, ripe with tangible and intangible skills, and you stepped into a new chapter of life, many of those skills were very transferable. And of course, you had to learn some new things to adjust to this new chapter. So the question of am I capable, you probably could answer confidently, like, yes, I've done this for 40 years. Here's my track record. Here's the evidence. But now we start getting into the am I worthy? Am I deserving? I don't know. I've never really coached. I've never coached at this capacity. You didn't have a leg to stand on, if you will, to answer some of these questions with the same level of conviction. And what we often see in real estate, for example, somebody who's been an agent for a few years, maybe they have their first six-figure year, first multi-six-figure year, and then suddenly they have this huge score. Maybe they 3 or 5x their annual income year over year. And what happens is, A, it sets them into a completely new bracket compared to their peers. And now they're standing out. They have more eyeballs, more attention, more pressure, more expectation. And because it's so foreign, and our subconscious craves familiarity because familiarity is predictable and that's how it keeps us safe, it's so foreign, it feels like a threat. And I know I'm saying that and you're like, I would love to 5x my income. That wouldn't feel threatening. But underneath the surface, it would. You stand out.
Yeah.
There's a potential to lose those relationships with peers. And that imposter syndrome begins to manifest as, ooh, is this a fluke? Did I get lucky? Can I do this again? It gets heavy. It gets doubtful. It gets uncertain. And it's because initially there isn't that feeling of, I believe I deserve to be here. I'm worthy and I can absolutely do it again, simply because of the novelty of it still.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And what comes to mind, as you're going through that is, is muscle memory. I mean, there's a lot of times we can think something and we can sort of know it, but we don't really know it. I mean, it's an idea. It's not something that is inside of us. So share with the audience, because there are people out there that are in sales that want to do something that is bigger than they can imagine right now or can believe about themselves. What are some things that they can do to try and create some muscle memory with confidence in what they're doing?
That's a great point. So the first question that has to be answered is, what do I want? And this is noteworthy to bring up because so many people find great ease in telling you what they don't want, but they don't have any clarity of what they actually want. So we're going to assume for this example, that salesperson knows that they either want to build a team or scale to this next level. The second and equally important question they have to ask themselves is, am I committed or am I interested? Like, let's be honest, the lifestyle, the dream of a multi-seven-figure earner sounds great. Sign us up, snap our fingers. We want it today. But we often overlook the work in the life that has to be lived to live that lifestyle. And it's easy to say, I'm interested in this. And the first time a challenge or a tough day comes up, it's like, oh, nope, I don't want this anymore. So we've got to make sure you're clear on what you want. We also have to make sure that you're committed to getting what you want. Clear so far?
I've interviewed a lot of salespeople to bring them into my organization, and I'll always say to them, and this will go right to your point, say, how much money do you want to earn? And they'll say, well, I want to earn a lot. And I will say, well, give me an example of what a lot is, because some people think $30,000 is a lot. Some people think $100,000 is a lot, and some people think $1 million is a lot. And so you've got to get into that mindset of what is really there. But the second part of it is I've never had anybody say, I don't want to earn $100,000. But some people don't want to do the work that's required to be able to earn $100,000. So I think
Bingo.
that's sort of the whole point that you're going into.
Yeah, and even those who are committed, like absolute certainty, every cell in their body says, yes, this is what I want. And then you coach, you lay out that blueprint for them. You help collectively set goals together so you as the coach can help with accountability. And when they still don't do what they know they need to do, it's not a character flaw. It's not a lack of knowledge problem. It's a mindset problem. That inaction or inconsistency is like a red alert flashing light of I'm not worthy, deserving, or good enough, or I'm afraid of failure, judgment, embarrassment, rejection, or success. From my work, that's an opportunity to really dig in and create a sense of safety at that next level. So we can then begin to unlearn the beliefs and the fears, which leads to an abundance of energy. And then that energy can be used to actually do what it is they know they need to be doing and create that positive upward spiral of momentum.
Yeah. So give me some examples of how people self-sabotage themselves.
Yeah, so I love it's such a fun topic. So I like to break self-sabotage down into two categories. The first one I call capital S sabotage. This is the obvious behavior that whether you're in Australia, China, or South Africa, anybody looking at you and the behavior you're doing is like, duh, obviously you're getting in your own way. So this is the gambling, the addiction, the drugs, the alcohol, the terrible sleep schedule, and self-care and hygiene. So those are the obvious big capital ones. If you're currently struggling with one of those, this is a reminder, a wake-up call. You've got to be the best you before you can lead your team and get to that next level. So self-care has to be a premium. The lowercase sabotaging behaviors, they're a little sneakier. On their own, a one-off, they don't seem like a big deal. So that might be snoozing your alarm, missing a workout, missing a meal, skipping a meditation session, skipping or postponing a date night with your significant other, bypassing a meeting at work. Again, on its own, okay, seems like not a big deal, but they sneakily compound quite quickly under the surface to pack a massive destructive punch of sabotage. And what happens is every time you break a promise to yourself, you lose confidence and credibility with yourself. It's hard to trust yourself. If you can't trust yourself, you don't believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? So it starts a really destructive domino effect when you begin to break the promises you make to yourself.
Great stuff there. So when you are working with somebody, what does that look like? I mean, how does that relationship start and where do you start?
Yeah, so the first step is we just have a conversation. Someone typically reaches out when they're stuck. They've tried multiple approaches, and candidly, I'm often one of the last resorts. People hear hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and sometimes it's like, ooh, I'm not really sure. We dig into education. And usually the first part after providing the education there, which we can happily talk about, is just building rapport. Can I confidently help this individual? It's got to start there. So we have a great, what I call discovery call to make sure it's a perfect mutual fit. And assuming it is for this conversation, the first step together is our deep dive call. This is a game of Paul asking 1,000 questions dating back to early childhood, adolescence, teenage years, all up until today, because from my end, I'm trying to spot all the potential origins of these destructive behaviors. So if you're somebody listening and you struggle with public speaking, performance anxiety, fear of success, procrastination, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and the list goes on and on, all of these are learned feeling states and behaviors, which means they can be unlearned. So as I'm learning more about your upbringing, what makes you you, I'm beginning to spot these potential origin points, and I'm beginning to be able to prioritize the list of opportunities. And that's where through our hypnosis work, we'll go in and we'll uncover the when, the why, the how you learned, to feel anxious speaking in front of others, for example. And we do the work to unlearn it, to build that confidence, that clarity, and whatever you need to do so incredibly effectively.
Yeah, I love that. So, in order to solve the problem, you have to understand the origins of it. I love that. So, changing a little bit, what is a daily mental fitness routine that you would suggest to most people that want to change their mindset or improve their mindset?
I love the way you describe that daily mental fitness routine. I'm going to take that. Well said. Sitting in silence. without a doubt. And I'll explain. So first, there's this phenomenal quote. Unfortunately, I don't remember where I read it or heard it from. It's not mine. But the quote is this: the voice of your subconscious mind is silence. Why is that important? Your subconscious mind influences 95% of what you do every day. It's home to your memories, your beliefs, your values, your habits. It's what makes you you. We live in a day and age where there is such intense competition for our attention every millisecond around every turn that it's so easy to get lost in somebody else's thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and opinions. We get so disconnected and further away from ourselves that practice of sitting in silence and solitude allows us to begin to turn down the outside noise and look and feel and see within to reconnect with who we authentically are so we can move forward in an aligned way. So when I say silence and solitude practice, that might look like meditation. It might look like journaling. It might look like breath work, a walk in nature. It's going to look different for every individual, but some form of silence practice is a game changer in helping you stay connected to yourself and ensuring that even if you get off on the wrong path, you can quickly get back on it.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of people that I know that are close to me know that I do this, but I have a 90-minute routine every single day where when I wake up, I read some things that are helpful to me and inspiring to me, faith things, and I will journal 3 pages a day. It's something that I got from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, probably 30 years ago. I've been doing it for a long time. And then there's some prayer and meditation that goes along with it. But what I try to describe for people that is the result for me is that it is a relationship that I have with myself and with my creator. And when I take care of that every single day, all of the other craziness that's going on in the world doesn't affect me in the same way because I'm okay. Okay. So I like what you shared. There's some daily silence.
I love that you shared that. And something too, like the hidden benefit of many that you just shared about your practice is by doing it daily, you're setting an intention and honoring a commitment to yourself. So you are just continuing to lay brick after brick of building self-trust, accountability, which transforms into confidence and belief. And yeah, when things in the world go crazy, you know that you're good because you've taken care of yourself and you're your most steady foundational you who can weather any storm. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. And I mean, a lot of people will say, well, 90 minutes is too long, Mark. It didn't start at 90 minutes. I mean, that's the first thing I'll share is it didn't start at 90 minutes, but I can share over the last 15 years, I've missed maybe 5 or 6 days in 15 years. And that was because I was traveling. I mean, most of the time when I travel, I still do it, but I was traveling and for one reason or another, I wasn't able to do it. So that's great.
Can I share one more thing on that, Mark?
Absolutely.
You talk about, your morning routine didn't start 90 minutes. I often tell my clients, morning routine should be non-negotiable. Have 2 variations. Have the 10-minute low-hanging fruit one where you're still at least pouring into yourself because 10 minutes is better than nothing. And then have the 30 to 60 or 90-minute variation. Me personally, like my bare minimum is I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I write down my goals. That takes me 8 to 10 minutes. And then when I have more time, there's much more expansive journaling. I bring in, other prompts and things of that nature as well when I have a bit more of the bandwidth. But have a variation. That way you can continue to stack wins. Even if they're small wins, they're better than losses.
Yeah. A small win is better than a loss. That's for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that one. Is there anything else that you think is important that we share with the audience today? There's so much here that I can't wait to see what happens with the comments and with the people that I'm working with, what they have to say about it. So I'm going to ask you to be open to coming back and sharing more if I get some more deeper questions in that case. But also share, if there's one thing you want to leave the audience with, what would that be?
That's a good question. I think it ties in nicely with the last part of our conversation as we talk about this, prioritizing your relationship with yourself. Lead with non-judgmental curiosity. We've talked a lot in the last 20, 30 minutes about, these destructive sabotaging patterns, and it can be very easy to get frustrated with yourself. I can't believe I keep doing X, Y, and Z. I know I'm doing it, but I don't know how to stop. When you get curious and you begin to reflect, preferably in that period of silence and solitude, have that lens of non-judgmental curiosity. Because two important pieces here. Number one, 95% of your beliefs, which influence these behaviors, they were created by the age of 7. They're not yours. But you're the only one who can do something about it. So have that grace, that compassion with yourself. And number two, understand, these beliefs and behaviors weren't developed in 3 days. They're the result of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life experience. You're not going to unlearn them in 60 seconds. That also takes work, but it's the most rewarding and fulfilling work you can ever do for yourself, which by default has a positive impact on everybody else in your life.
Thanks for sharing all of that. Share with everybody how they can reach you, and I will also make sure that all of your contact information is in the show notes. And again, really enjoyed the conversation today.
Yeah, of course, Mark. So on Instagram, where I'm most active is at the Paul Salter. The best website is thegolfhypnotherapist.com. I don't only work with golfers, open to all high performers looking to achieve next level success. And then I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is going live, but around February 16th or 17th, my recent book comes out on Amazon, The Sustainable Weight Loss Code, which talks about becoming the best version of you, losing the weight from the inside out. That's a phenomenal read that'll provide a lot of value that you can find on Amazon.
Appreciate the time today. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mark. I enjoyed it.
That was so strong because it went deeper than tactics. If you're listening and you realize, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it consistently, that's not a character flaw. There's a program running underneath. And today you got a way to see it and start dismantling it. If this episode helped you, share it with one person who's serious about mastery, especially someone in real estate, sales, or leadership, anyone trying to perform under pressure. This is time-tested mastery, life lesson sell, no hype, no pressure, just the principles that hold up. Paul, thanks again for being here.